IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today we're going to be starting off our Trekking and Mountaineering series. Why are we doing that? Because, well, I'm climbing a mountain. And if you've been listening to the Habit Coach podcast for any amount of time, you know that I love trekking. And trekking has a very, very important role in my life. It has played a very important role in the way that my business has gone, in the way the habit coaching idea came about. Because for me, when I go on a trek, it is a time when I completely disconnect from everything else around. It is a time when there is complete clarity on what I need to be doing. You know, I've mentioned this in many podcasts. Sitting in there in the valley, looking at these beautiful, gorgeous, majestic mountains puts you in a completely different frame of mind. You suddenly realize that all the things that you think of as a human being that are so important to you, that you value so deeply, are actually insignificant compared to these gorgeous mountains that exist. The mountains have been there for thousands of years. You are here for not even a blink of a second in the scheme of things. So for me, it is a beautiful way of adding perspective to life, and which is why I love doing these treks, going to the mountains, spending time with my friends. So let's talk about what we're having in store for you this time around. For the next 2 weeks, you're going to have access to all the stuff that I'm going to be doing on the trek. So I'm carrying a little dictaphone with me. I'm going to have my phone with me, and I'm going to start recording on an everyday basis what are the things that we are experiencing. I am going to be climbing this mountain called Kangyatse 2. Now, Kangyatse 2 is a 6,250 meter high peak. When you think about heights, it's very difficult to think about, oh, this is 6,500 meters, that is 5,000 meters. What is the difference? Well, the difference between a 5,000 meter and a 6,000 meter is 1 kilometer vertically up. Now, imagine, many a times we think about, oh, I ran a 5K. Yeah, but that's 5K flat. Imagine 5K vertical, right? So it's very interesting to start thinking of heights in terms of this 1 kilometer vertically up, and things start to completely take on a different meaning. Another way of thinking about what 6,200 meters feels like is to understand that Mount Everest is 8,000 something meters, right? So we are that much closer to that high altitude of Mount Everest. So it's a fascinating place to be. Now, when you go on these treks, these are called high altitude treks. And when you go on these high altitude treks, there are multiple things that you have to take care of. And as a result, there are multiple learnings that you will have about yourself. So I remember the first time I ever went on a trek was to Everest Base Camp, Mount Everest Base Camp. And along the way, there were 3 big things that were deterrents, or that were things that really got me off guard, things that I'd never experienced before. The first was the cold. So I clearly remember this one day we were sitting and we just finished the trek. Now, if you've never experienced this or that kind of cold, it's very, very interesting. It was possibly in the 5 degrees. And I had just finished taking a sponge bath kind of a wipe. You basically have these wet wipes and you clean your body with that because that's the only thing. You can't have a bath there. I'd come out and I suddenly started feeling so cold. I was shivering and shaking in my boots. And Samir, who's the troop leader, takes me along and says, come, let's go for a walk. And I'm like, are you mad? I just want to hide in my room and stay warm. And he's like, no, you have to move in order to get that body and that heat generating. And that was the first time I actually thought about it in that context. So one is, how do you deal with the cold? What I found absolutely fascinating the first time I experienced this was I was wearing 3-4 layers of clothes. Like I was wearing a t-shirt, I was wearing a fleece, I was wearing a down jacket. And Samir, this lunatic, he was walking around in a t-shirt. He was walking around in a t-shirt in 5 degrees. And we're looking at him and he's like, it's okay. No problem. And we can't figure out for the life of us how is he managing to do that. Till you suddenly realize, and over the course of my treks, I started practicing this. And he said, the big secret is that when people look at us in our t-shirts, they think that we don't feel cold. But the truth is that we feel very cold. It is that we accept the cold. It is when you don't accept the cold and you struggle with the cold, that's when it starts really hurting. Now imagine what he just said and think about when it comes to life. The things that we really struggle with and we really fight with are the things that remain as big problems in our life. The things that we don't struggle with come, they go, they come, they go. And if you learn to accept things like that, if you learn to accept the cold doesn't have any power over you anymore. Of course, you'll feel cold. Maybe you'll shiver a little. Maybe you'll feel your hair standing on end. But it won't bother you like it did earlier. Because then what happens is that you fall into this negative loop, right? You start feeling cold, so you start shivering. You start shivering, so you start feeling more cold. You start panicking more. And as a result, our mind goes on this complete journey of emotions. Instead, imagine if you just paused and took it on board. What is the cold trying to teach me? One of my heroes is a gentleman called Wim Hof. He's very commonly known as the Iceman. And he's called the Iceman because he's done some crazy Guinness Book of World Records kind of feats where, he stayed submerged in an ice cube for a certain amount of time. He swam under an ice sheet in the Arctic. He's done crazy, crazy things like that. He's called the Iceman for a reason. One of my favorite stories about him was that he climbed Kilimanjaro, a mountain that we did 2-3 years ago, in his swimming trunks. So all he had on were trekking boots, swimming trunks. That's all. Can you imagine climbing a mountain in your swimming trunks? While we were wearing, I'll tell you what all I was wearing. I was wearing 2 layers of socks. That means 1 woolen sock, 1 cotton sock. I was wearing thermal underwear, followed by a trekking pant, which is fleece lined, followed by a wet layer on the top. Then I had a t-shirt, a fleece, a down jacket, and an external shield with a hat. And all of that was what I was wearing. And this gentleman is walking up Kilimanjaro in his swimming trunks. So we had just finished the summit. Okay, so we had climbed the summit. We were all in this josh, this complete excitement and this elation of victory. And I'm walking back and I was talking to the guide there. So he's this African chap and he's been climbing Kilimanjaro. In fact, he was born on the foothills of Kilimanjaro. He has a farm in Kilimanjaro and his name was Tiger, right? And he loved picking up women on the trek by saying, "Have you ever been with a tiger in Africa?" And that was his pickup line. But anyway, apart from that. So Tiger and I are having a discussion. And Tiger talks to me and he's like, I told him, by the way, have you ever seen somebody climbing Kilimanjaro in his swimming trunks? And Tiger looks at me like, how did you know? And he says, yes, Iceman, I met him. So Tiger had just finished summiting and he was walking down and he sees this man in swimming trunks walking up to him. Can you imagine this sight? You've just finished, everyone is in layers and this gentleman in his short pants is walking up. So he spent some few minutes talking to Wim Hof and left. And I found that story so hilarious, saying that, yeah, it was so scary seeing this person walking up in just swimming trunks. I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, so Wim Hof says something very interesting because Wim Hof teaches how to deal with the cold. And he says something very interesting. People think that I enjoy the cold. I don't enjoy the cold. I hate the cold. But I learn from the cold. He says the cold is the best teacher. He says, if you can learn what your body does and what your mind does when you're in cold, you have supremely taken control of your body and your mind. So it is not about not shivering. It is not about being brave. It is about acceptance. And that is something beautiful that I learned from trekking. Because till then, frankly, I had never faced the cold. And if at all something was cold, I would probably just run away from it. But nowadays, when we go on these treks, for example, on this trek, on our summit night, we'll be at minus 20 degrees. Minus 20 degrees is very, very cold. I remember the last time I was doing a summit, which is climbing on top of a peak. The time before last, which was a summit called Stokangri. the water in my water bottle had frozen over. It was that cold. So no longer could I drink water from my camelback, that pipe, that you see sticking out from people's backpacks. It was just frozen over. So that entire trek, I didn't have water. And you suddenly realize just what the cold means and how you can start dealing with this. So that was one of the first things that I learned from trekking. The beauty of all of this, and the reason why I'm sharing this with you, is that you don't have to go to a high altitude trek to experience this. And I'll do future episodes describing each of these aspects: the cold, the altitude, and the tiredness or fatigue. Today, I want to focus on the cold. If you can learn to react and teach your body how to deal with the cold, your body will be in a very, very healthy state. The reason being, the human body was designed to be able to tolerate extreme environments. It wasn't designed to be tolerating air-conditioned environments. When we talk about air conditioning, it means that we have changed the air, we've conditioned the air to what we feel is comfortable. But humans have survived in the desert, humans have survived in the Arctic, humans have survived everywhere. That means our body has the ability to do that. And if we don't use it, we lose it. So using the cold is something that I think all of us should start. It's a fantastic habit. All you do is every day, if you have the ability to take a trough of water, fill it with cold water from the fridge, put ice in it, and then just dip your hands in it and see what all happens. You will notice that you will suddenly start feeling a tingly sensation. Then you suddenly start feeling a pain sensation. Normally at this pain sensations when we pull out, correct? But I want you to keep it there and accept the pain and breathe. You breathe through it. And then what happens is something very interesting. The pain disappears. The pain goes away and you start feeling warm. Your fingers are in that bowl of water with ice, but your hands and fingers are now feeling warm. What has changed? The physiology of your fingers and hands have changed. What has happened is very interesting. All the little capillaries that supply blood have now closed and then slowly opened up. And that closing and opening is what the pain was, because these are muscles that we don't use, which is why we felt the pain. But once they close and open up, what has happened is your body is teaching itself to regulate that temperature so that you don't feel cold anymore. You start feeling warm there. You can hang out maybe for another 30 seconds or a minute. And once you're done, take your hands out and then, just open them, close them, open them, close them. And you can do the same thing with your feet. Both these things work on your body at a physiological level and teach your body how to use its capillaries. Open them up, close them up, open them up, close them up. I think this is a fantastic habit to have. Of course, many of y'all already know about the cold shower habit. I've done podcasts on that. Please go back, listen to that episode. I think it's a fantastic one. Many people who've started doing it have seen a huge difference in their life. The last thing that I would say is that, most of us live in these very, very warm environments, which is very difficult for us to have cold water showers in any case, because the cold water is sometimes very, very hot, frankly. So as a result, this ice technique of the bowl and putting your hands and fingers in it is a fantastic one. The last thing you can do to also improve the quality of your skin on your face is dip your face into that water of ice. And over a period of time, you'll see a big change in the way that your face looks. So that was the episode on what I learned from mountaineering and the cold. We will do on altitude and breathing, and we'll do on fatigue very, very soon. So I'm off to the mountains. This is a recorded one. By the time you listen to this, I will be up there somewhere, high up, 3,000 meters, climbing a mountain. God knows what else I'll be doing. Having fun, hopefully. See you soon. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com. or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME 180. That's Awesome 180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened on the IVM Podcast Network this week. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus was joined by Irfan Pabani, who is an old friend of his. They talk about the rich flavors of Indian food and Parsi food specifically. He was also joined by author and historian William Dalrymple. They discuss literature, history, and the culture of the Indian subcontinent. And let me give you a few quick things to check out. Chuck, aka Deepak Gopal Krishnan of Simplified and the Origin of Things fame, has Rohan Joshi, formerly of AIB, on his show. Also on this round is on me. Gautam Purohit of Thakur's Bhojnalaya was on. On the note, Maruk and I talks about the cabinet reshuffle. And do check out Global Victoria Tech Talks. We talk about the booming gaming and edutech industries in Australia. Do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up what's going on the network. And I'd like to finally thank our sponsors on the network this week, Cred, Ciet, and Global Victoria. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Come learn and experience the ABCDs of being queer with me, Shunetro.
And me, Farhad.
On our show, Gay BCD.
The two of us take you through our stories and experiences of being gay men in the city of Mumbai and have candid
and sometimes downright scandalous
conversations about sexuality, gay culture, and everything in between.
Catch new episodes of Gay BCD every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get all your podcasts from.